moving right along. So active record association. So if our database allows us to associate data, and we can structure our models that way, we can assume that active record provides some helpful structures to accomplish this. These are called associations, or how we link data between two different database managed tables. And what we're going to do is set things up in a way such that we really don't have to know all about the mechanics of how the database works. But by giving the proper names and columns to our tables, active record will handle the work as long as we know a couple key terms. So what is this going to look like? In our class movie, we're going to use, again, a function which is included with active record called hasMany. So if I say movie has many reviews, this tells active record that my movie model, that each one of these things, should know about something called a reviews table, which is going to be linked to that model. Hasmany implies that a movie will have more than one review, which of course makes sense in this case. And this will be all that I need to do to implement a linking between reviews and movies once I've created my migration. In our review class then, what does a review have? So if we have a reviews table, how do we link a review to a movie? Well, the inverse of hasMany is going to be belongs to. And this tells Rails that each review belongs to, in this case, how many movies? Just one movie. Because if we're leaving our review as a user, we're not leaving a review for 5 or 6 movies at a time. That doesn't really make sense in this world. So a review belongs to one single movie. And this will tell Rails how the database is modeled in the inverse direction, that given some review, I have something called a movie ID, and I will know how to look that up. And if we do those two things, that allows us to go in each direction. I can go from movie to reviews, or from a review to a particular movie. And we'll see that it's handy to be able to go in both directions as we work on building out our application. The way that we sort of phrase this is the foreign key on the reviews on my table belongs to me. Whenever you have belongs to, you think about that thing as review belongs to movie means that there should be a movie ID column on that reviews table. It's easy to reverse these and sort of get some funny error messages, but the way to think about it is belongs to is an owning relationship. So a review sort of owns the foreign key to the movie when we use belong to. So what's the basic idea here? Reviews has a foreign key, which points at the primary key for a movie. So when we make foreign keys, we always want to point them at some stable source, which is why we commonly use movie.id or movie_ID, depending on the circumstance. And this allows us to go from both a movie to its reviews and a review to its movies. When we look at movies.reviews, we're going to join lazily in the database on reviews where the movie ID matches of a review, matches our current movie's ID. In a review, it's actually pretty easy, right? If there's a movie ID column on our individual review to find the particular movie, we just look up the movie where the movie ID is review.movieID. And as long as we're sticking with database IDs, this becomes quite easy to manage in Rails. Of course, in a complicated app, there are ways around it, but what we're going to do is essentially have a database table that tracks these foreign keys, and we'll get all the rest for free. I've already run this in our app, so we're not going to show running this again, but here's a sample migration for how we might consider things. So in our migration, if we're creating a new table, or if we're adding columns to a table, the syntax that we use, and thankfully this is pretty consistent across Rails versions, is table.references movie. And in this case, we haven't talked about yet, but we're going to go ahead and add a second reference to table.references of moviegoer. And this will allow us to reference a particular user from a review. And what Rails does is when we use references, it explicitly tells the database that this thing is going to be a column named movie_ID. It's going to help us link that to the movies table. And it's going to tell the database that this is not just any random column, but this is specifically a foreign key. And depending on how you configure your database, you get a lot of additional security and constraints by using references. Of course, it's a database. You can put other data in there. But for now, we have just these few simple columns. Now that we've done this, what does it look like from the Rails side? Assuming our migrations has been run, we've specified hasMany and belongs to. We get to say at movie.reviews, which is an enumerable of all the reviews that can be linked to the current movie. We also get to say at review.movie, which is given any current review, load the one movie that exists. And we get to use some really handy methods here. So when we build and create models, right, we want to use the methods like build and create, but Rails gives us some pretty neat syntax here. So now I'm able to say at movie.reviews.build or at movie.reviews.create. And what is Rails going to do here is it's going to automatically link that review that is being created right now to the movie instance that we have. So depending on how we structure our application, this will allow us to automatically ensure that when we make that review, it is linked to the particular movie that we're working with. And of course, we can say at movie.reviews gets appended some new review. So in Rails or in Ruby, we have this sort of double caret operator here, which will instantly append to a list of data. This is sort of a save operation. So Rails knows how to treat associations that have many items to automatically save them to the database. But we could also just call review, new review.save. And now we get to write additional queries. So if I say movie.reviews.where, what am I doing is I'm executing a query on the movie's reviews with some condition such as, what are all my 5 potato rated movies?